In today's fast-moving world, we're constantly pulled towards speed, convenience, and productivity. And too often, that pull comes at the expense of our values. Instead of making life easier, we can find ourselves feeling ungrounded, disconnected from who we are, what we believe, and the people around us. So today, we're exploring why it's worth pushing against society's norms to clarify our values and live our lives holding true to them. Hello, Humanity First community, and welcome back to the Leading for Children podcast. I'm Nichole Parks, Executive Director at Leading for Children, where we are driving a movement about centering connection as a powerful means to strengthen communities so that children can thrive and so all of us can thrive. Joining me in this conversation today is Julia.
Hi friends, I'm Julia Connolly, show producer and Leading for Children's Development and Communications Associate, and I am so happy to be with you all today.
Thanks, Julia. And our special guest, someone who has made a powerful impact in my life, in the life of my child, is Kaylee Phillips. Kaylee, can you please say hello and introduce yourself?
Hey, I'm Kaylee Phillips. I'm my school's dyslexia interventionist, and my degree is in special education. And I've been teaching for 8 years.
Thanks, Kaylee. You'll get to hear more from Kaylee in a little bit, and you'll clearly understand why we invited her here today. So to offer some context for those who are listening at home, Kaylee is my daughter's teacher, and I am so grateful to have her as part of the village supporting us. Kaylee immediately came to my mind about who we wanted to invite for this conversation because she lives her values every day in the classroom and beyond. Whether she's guiding young people to reflect on their choices or making space for them to be fully seen, she's the kind of educator who makes a lasting impact. I am so thrilled she's here with us today. Let's dive in. Kaylee, I'd like to start by inviting you to share how you came to understand what your values are and how that understanding evolved through your work with children and families.
I grew up in a very specific family, and my idea of values was, do you have the same values your parents have, right? If your parents are Christians, you're a Christian. If your parents are Republicans, you're a Republican. And so that was very much where my mindset always was. I think growing up, I just thought everybody had a similar life that I had. And in college, I learned that that was not the case. And then through teaching, I really learned to have my own voice. I was always scared to have a voice with my family, if that makes sense. It wasn't that I thought that I couldn't disagree. It was that I didn't feel like I knew enough about what I believed in to disagree with them. And so when I became a teacher, I was like, oh, okay, like we can all have our own beliefs. They don't have to be exactly the same as the person next to us or even our family members. And that was really hard for me to come to terms with, but something that I try to bring into the classroom. So you hear a lot, especially in middle school, and especially as I've taught through the last 2 elections, you hear a lot of what kids think and not so much what they think. I immediately know where their parents stand on a lot of things. And I really try to tell kids, my job isn't to teach you what to think, it's to teach you how to think. And so why do you believe that to be true? And saying, because my mom and dad told me so, is not good enough. So I try to use that as part of my value. Like, if you're going to believe something or have a value, you need to be able to defend it and have a reason for why it's yours and not just because somebody else said so.
Thank you for that, Kaylee. And I have so much appreciation for multiple things that you said. This idea, though, of I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'm here to teach you how to think and how that helps children, especially children who may not, quote unquote, have typical development, to help them see themselves as thinkers and to understand that they have a voice. And the other thing that I thought about as you were talking is that when we open our minds to perspective taking, not only does it help us to hear the voice and thoughts of others, but it helps us to recognize ours with more clarity. So I really appreciated that.
I think it's so important to know we're all different. Like, we do not all have to have the same values, but that doesn't make us unvaluable to someone else, right? I think that that's a big thing in society right now. Just because we don't agree does not mean that my opinion is unvaluable compared to yours.
Julia, anything you'd like to add?
That all resonates so much. I think you can get so stuck when you feel bound to the substance of what I'm supposed to think and believe. It's kind of like in school, it's easier to learn how to think about a subject rather than memorize the material. And if you know the process, then you're able to come to conclusions on your own with so much more ease and comfort and ownership of it. And another thing that came to mind is we share so many values just because the way that we talk about them might look different. At its core, if you break down our values to their very center, it's usually about love and care and relationships. It's usually about taking care of each other and looking out for each other and wellness. And sometimes our language doesn't necessarily match up, but the more you can notice, we all care about the same things that feels really important. And then when conflicts come up, it's easier to break it down and find alignment.
Yeah. I think too that right now in society, it's so easy for people to say, especially everyone's pointing fingers at teachers, what you can and can't say in the classroom, especially about anything political or religious or whatever it may be. And my thing is, it's not our job to teach kids what they should think. So, no teacher, at least no teacher that I know, and I hope no teacher, is sitting in here and telling a kid that they should be or they should believe X, Y, and Z. It's more like getting them to think about the bigger picture and that there are many more values and many more opinions and things out there than what they've just seen in their short little lifespan. And so getting them to think as a broad thinker instead of someone's telling them what to think, if that makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense. And that resonates deeply with me. And I imagine it does with you, Julia, as well. And so I want to invite us to take a step back a little bit. When I think about you, Kaylee, and when I see you interacting with other children, not just my daughter, it's so much about your being and who you are. And so I am curious, when you feel grounded in your values and act in alignment with it, what does it feel like?
It feels like a safe place, like not feeling anxious. If I am not grounded, I am in a tizzy, right? So I feel super like in control of what's going on around me, organized, able to think clearly when I am grounded.
Thank you for that. Listening to you say that, it made me chuckle a little bit because in my head, I just went, that makes sense. Because I'm often, frankly, in awe of how you stay so grounded and so regulated, even if the children, and I'll speak specifically to mine because I want to respect everyone else's children. I know my child, and it is amazing to me how, in those moments when she's dysregulated, how calm and grounded you stay. And as a mother, because you stay calm and grounded, it helps me to do the same. And when you were talking about that safe space and how that's a place where you feel grounded when you're acting from your values, it just made that connection for me in my head.
Yeah, I hope that I can always create a safe place for kids. I tell people all the time, they're not going to remember what you taught them. You had plenty of teachers, tons, right? And I can only think back on maybe one or two and something specific they taught me, like something super specific. I remember my English teacher who read me The Great Gatsby, right? That's like one situation. But majority of things I learned, I don't remember who taught me what. But I always tell people it doesn't matter what you teach them. It matters how you make them feel because they remember that for their life. So there are moments, I'm not a perfect human, where I get irritated. Although I do think that I am better at hiding it than the kids think. They say they don't notice as much as maybe I feel it inside. But one thing that always brings me back to being grounded is they're going to remember how I made them feel. So even if I make a mistake or I get upset with a kid, I really try to reflect on that later that day. It does sit on me, and I'll come back to a kid and be like, I'm really sorry if I seem frustrated with you. Because I'm with you. It had been a busy day at work, and I apologize. I took it out on you. Just because I think that's important for them to see. And I want them to remember me as making them feel safe and not making me feel stressed out in the long run.
Thank you for that. I want to pull on that thread just a little bit more. And Julia, I invite you to chime in as well. Listening to you talk about how you show up with and for children in those moments, maybe when you're not as grounded in your values or you're not as regulated. And I laugh and tell people all the time no one can dysregulate you like a toddler or a teenager.
True.
Those two time periods, they are the masters at dysregulating you. And so I too think about the modeling that you are doing for those children and for the adults. I know myself included around you when you come back and you're able to say, I am sorry that I got frustrated. It was not you, it was me. Because one thing about living from our values is we know that they develop when we're young, right? And also, we know that the way that children see us and experience us being, that says so much more than any words that we can ever say. And so, just doing that is such a strong model to children about what a value such as respect and, taking responsibility, how those things really look in application.
Yes, for sure.
I think to Nicole and Kaylee about how there are so many situations that come up where you feel like I have no idea what to do, or it's too complicated. I can't see myself. I can't see the other person clearly. I can't see the situation clearly. And how helpful it is to take a pause and take a deep breath and say, what matters to me here? And maybe I just had an interaction that doesn't feel so good, or, someone spoke to me in a way that didn't feel good. Who do I want to be in this situation? And I find that even sometimes when that's a harder choice to make and maybe it's not reciprocated, I always will feel better and more grounded and like I can be more authentic. And I think that that speaks to kids so much too, because they don't necessarily have all the filters that we as adults have. And they're not so bound to trying to look a certain way or things moving quickly, being more productive, whatever. Kids just feel the energy of the experience. They just feel what's going on and how you're doing. And so it's such a helpful model, I think, for them to see us turning back to our values and using them to guide us when we're feeling really stuck.
Something I've tried to teach the kids lately that I've just learned and I think is important if they could learn it at a younger age. And I've told all of them this. I won't say I'm an emotional person because I feel like us as women get tagged as emotional all the time. I would say I'm passionate, but I realized that a lot of times I feel way more passionate about something in the moment than I do the next day. So through counseling, I've had to work on like, okay, as much as I want to react to this right now, I may vent about it to a friend, but I'm not going to respond to that person until I slept on it. And if I still feel upset about it tomorrow, then I'll address it. But most of the time, I need to like take a moment and breathe and center myself. And I try to tell the kids that, like, you are so distraught over whatever it is today, but will it really matter tomorrow to you? And if it still does, we can address it. We can have whatever conversations you want to have, but let's try to wait a 24-hour period before we react, which seems impossible to especially adolescent, middle aged children. The hormones are on 10. And so asking them to restrain and wait is a really hard thing. But I wish I would have learned that skill when I was their age. It's taken me till 30 to learn it.
What a powerful way of engaging children in becoming aware of their own selves and their own way of being, and also cultivating tools to be able to navigate that. I often tell people we all have parts of ourselves that if we were designing ourselves, we may not have included. And rather than judging those parts of ourselves, it's important that we recognize this is a part of who I am, and I can cultivate tools to manage that. And I just hear that being such a powerful lesson that you are, again, modeling with children. So, not telling children this is what you need to do, but being able to say, hey, this is something that I do, and this is something that could possibly help you in this moment. And then it made me chuckle because I went, oh, so when my daughter says things to me now, like recently she said, I am just going to go to sleep because I am too mad not to say something. She was giving herself 24 hours to think.
She was. She was. And you're so right, Nicole. I've thought so many times I wish I could take out the emotional part of me, right? Like the business world says if you're going to be successful, you could just be this flatline person that doesn't show emotion or isn't super passionate. And I've had to learn it's not that that's a bad part. That can be a really good part, right? Like that is what has caused me to be extremely engaged in students' lives and made me a good teacher in a lot of ways. So I don't want to get rid of that part of me. I just have to learn how to channel it into a positive thing and not harp on it when it is a negative thing. Just kind of let it take its time. Something that I do a lot that I think parents could also learn from is when, as a middle school teacher, most kids come to you with conflict with other students. That is a big thing, right? The drama. That's what I always say, the drama. They'll come, I said this and so took it this way. And my response lately has been, okay, let's sit back and let's talk about this. I'm not saying you were wrong or that you had any ill intention to hurt another kid's feelings or cause this situation. But it's really important and it's a really good lesson to learn in middle school that it does not always matter your intention. It matters how you make other people feel. And you made that person feel as though you were being ugly to them or you hurt their feelings or whatever it may be. You may have thought it was a joke. You may have been trying to be a friend and lend a helping hand and they took it offensively. Whatever it may be, it does not matter your intention. And that is a really hard pill to swallow because I think we've been there before. Like I wasn't doing anything to that person. I was being a nice person. Well, it doesn't matter what your intention was. It matters how you make people feel because people's feelings are real and valid to them. And that's something I've really tried to make kids understand. I hear you, your feelings are valid and they're yours and they're real because I think growing up, it was really unfair that people would tell me how I felt about things was wrong. And you can't tell someone that how they feel is wrong. They cannot control how they feel about something. They can control how they react. They cannot control how they feel in that moment about something. And so I've tried to explain that to kids. It does not matter what you think or how you think they should feel. Their feelings are theirs. They're valid. They're real. And if they felt that way, then it's saying, I'm sorry I hurt your feelings. I'd like for you to understand more where I was coming from because I never want to hurt your feelings. And that goes back to kids will remember how you made them feel, not what you taught them. Right? Parents so often dismiss that. I experienced that as a kid. I see it happen all the time, and that's not fair. Like they feel what they feel.
Those are very big lessons to learn. And I think about how my life would have been different if I had learned those lessons much earlier in life. And I think back to being in my teacher prep class, and I was reading some work by Lillian Cass. And one of the things she said was, we have to believe children are capable. And so we have to believe that adolescents are capable of hearing the things that we're sharing with them. And most importantly, we have to know adolescents are very attuned to learn from the way they see us behave. So they learn so much by what we model with them. And so again, I think about how that helps to shape them and to set them up for being able to regulate their emotions and manage their feelings because we have big feelings in life. Something I used to tell my adult children when they were young and around that age, I would say, well, I tell you what, you want to learn this now. And I remember my son going, I don't care. And I say, well, say that when you're at work and they make you mad and you have a mortgage. You will care very much. You care so much that you will figure out how to stay there and manage yourself because you're not coming back to live with me if you don't.
For sure. For sure. For sure. They say things like dress code. I'm sorry, but I hate to tell you, you're going to have a dress code for the rest of your life. Your job's going to give you a dress code. I hate it. Sorry. I know it's not fun, but you can learn to express yourself while also following the dress code. So yes, I agree. They have big emotions and they have to learn how to channel them in an appropriate way. And if you don't think that they're not watching you as an adult, They're watching you and they're remembering every little thing you do. They do it to me. They are so fat. They remember more than we can. They remember if you said you were going to bring hot Cheetos on Thursday and you didn't. Like they know. And so they're going to hold it over you. Well, you said that I have to stay calm at all times, but you remember that time that you yelled at me? And it's like, yeah. And I had to do some reflecting and I was wrong. So you have to be able to own up to it because they don't forget.
So we've talked a lot about when we are in alignment with our values. What advice might you offer to other adults who care for and educate children about the importance of prioritizing our values and how to stay true to them?
I think that it is important that parents know that how you make them feel that carries over. I love my parents to death, but I do know how they make me feel. I call my mom so often. I just say, I just don't feel good enough. I feel like I'm doing all these things and I don't feel good enough. I actually called her yesterday and I was upset about something and I was rambling, and she is a fix it person, right? So she's like, we're going to fix it. And I've had to be like, sometimes there's not a fix it in that moment. I just want to vent to you. I don't want you to fix the problem. I don't want you to tell me all the ways I could fix it. I just am venting to you because I feel frustrated right now or upset, and you're my mom. I want to talk to you. And so last night I was rambling and she said, I'm sorry. I wish I had a better answer for you than just, I'm sorry, but you've told me that you just want me to listen. You don't want me to fix it. And that's the first time she's kind of really done that. And she was like, I want you to know you're good enough. And even as a 30-year-old adult, that feels good to hear from my mom. So for kids, it's the same thing. What do they want from you? Because I think we think so often when they come to us or they're venting or going off, my mom's like, why are you yelling at me? I'm like, no, I'm not yelling at you. I'm just getting it out because you're a safe place to talk. So know that if a kid comes to you hot, it doesn't always mean that they're mad at you. It does not always mean that they are coming for you. You can sit and you can listen to them, right? And hear them out. And then you can ask them, what do you need from me in this moment? I think that's a big thing. What do you need from me? Don't expect to have an answer for them. Don't expect to be able to give them the right thing. Don't expect them to react the way that you think or tell them to do X, Y, and Z. It's better to ask them, what do you need from me right now? When they're at a meltdown point. Nichole, not picking on your daughter, but I've had her in moments of meltdown and I have had to say, what do you need from me right now? Because the problem is not going away. We can't fix it right this second, but what do you need from me? And sometimes it's, I don't want to talk to you. And sometimes it's, can I call my mom? And so I try to ask because assuming is not a great way ever, right? In anything, assuming gets us on a deep, dark hole, right? It doesn't matter how many times someone tells me I'm good enough or how many kind messages I get. They feel great, but that doesn't fix deep down inside.
I hear such a deep value of respect. It not in a bad way when I use the word astonishes. It sincerely astonishes me. The deep down in your bones respect that you have for people, including these adolescents that you work with. Like it is just astonishing, and it is so clear that you have a respect for them. And I feel that is possibly why they react to you the way that they do. Like you respect them in a way that elicits respect back from them. I'm not talking about that traditional, we respect our elders type thing. I'm talking about that deeply. I respect her as a person because she lives what she tells me. She doesn't tell me to do something and she does something different. And I think that value of respect is so there. And then also, I hear this value for just empathy, right? For actually having care for and concern for and being willing to walk alongside someone, whether they're 12 or whether they're 22, right? But just to have that same level of empathy and walking alongside them. And so I just wanted to call those out because I can see them. And I just wanted to share that with the audience, what I was noticing in the things that you were saying.
Yeah. And you say empathy. Everybody has a different level. And I learned more about empathy when I was in college, and it made sense to me because I was like, why do I get more upset about things, even if it's somebody else telling me something? I had a kid come to me last year whose house had burned down, and I couldn't get through the conversation without my eyes welling. but I can feel your pain. I can feel how sad you feel about that. And I'm not crying because I want the attention on me or anything. Like, I just feel so strongly for you. And at times, I feel like that is a curse because I get really consumed. There's something going on at school with the kid. I can't sleep at night. I can't let it go. The activist trying to figure out how to fix it. I'm not saying that to toot my own horn. It's not always a good thing. Sometimes I have to be able to disconnect from that, or I will drown in somebody else's pain. And so I think that we need to teach these kids more empathy. And there are ways to do that. As a parent, we have to have empathy, right, for kids. And if you don't have that, that's okay. You can learn. So the best way I think and know how is reading books with stories with kids who are going through situations. So if you're a parent and your kid is going through something specific, you can pick up a book with a character that's going through something similar and you can read that. And that is a great way to build empathy because you're reading, it's not someone personal to you, but you're hearing another story. I have a book that I give most kids, Whitebird. It's written by R.J. Polacco. And I think that book builds so much empathy for kids. I've never had a kid read it and not come back to me and say that they cried at the ending.
Thank you for that, Kaylee. Do you mind if I share your reaction this summer when I text you about the big change? Okay. So over the summer, my husband passed away suddenly. And as I thought about my daughter's village and who will she need, because obviously as her mom, I'm not going to be as strong as normally I am. Who else does she need to surround her? And I sat in my bed and I was writing a list, and Kaylee's name was the second name on the list. The first was her godmother's, the second was Kaylee. And I struggled with that for a moment. I was like, it's summertime. You really need to draw a boundary here. And just as I observed my daughter, I went, she needs her village. And so I said, I'll just say, I want you to know this information because we were getting close to the start of school, which we were. And when I texted you, I just remember you texting back immediately, not only concerned for Gracie, concerned for me as well. And, hey, do you mind? Let's meet. Let's go have ice cream. And you said, if she wants. And when I shared that with her, her first face was kind of like, she wants to. And I was like, yes. She's like, yes, when? And then I remember just kind of observing the conversation that you all were having. And what I really appreciated about you in that moment was it was so clear that you were there for her, for me, for us. And also, you helped her to find some of her values. And you had conversations with her about, hey, you're going to have some big feelings when you're at school. Here's how you can respond to them. So it wasn't that you're going to have these big feelings and you're on your own, kid, or doesn't really matter at school. It was, let's think about some tools that you can access. And let's also think about how you would handle those feelings in a way that's, healthy and appropriate. And I just have so much appreciation for that because not only was that empathy very much present, also was the values of respect as well. And also that thing that I really admire that you help children think about in the midst of all of that, you still helped her to understand I am here with you. And even in this, though, you have a responsibility. We don't know what you need if you don't tell us. You can manage your feelings. And I just remembered that. And I remember driving home, and literally my thought was, I want every child to have a teacher like this. That was literally my thought. I want every child to have a teacher like this. And so I share that because I wanted the audience to get that image of what you mean when you talk about having empathy and you talk about how you show up with it for children. And I also want to hold very explicitly that your values stay front and center, even to helping children understand that in every situation in life, even the ones that are hard, we still have a choice in how we respond to it. And I had so much appreciation for that.
Yeah, I was like, Gracie, we can't change the situation, right? But how do we move forward in a positive note and prepare for the school year? And I think it made a big difference for her because she felt more prepared because we had already had those conversations. We didn't wait till a meltdown happened or she felt really low. And she's had a really successful school year. Just shows as a parent, you have to pay attention to your kids and kind of think a step ahead of them. It's hard. It's hard to learn that. But if you know that something's coming up or whatever, you have to sit down and have the conversation of this is going to happen and how do we prepare now so that we don't crash out when the situation does occur. And that's hard. That's hard for any adult, right? Preparing ahead of time.
Thank you for that, Julia. I saw your thinking face.
Thanks, Nichole. Thank you, Kaylee. What I'm hearing is that when you create space for your child or a child and you see them and their humanity and their whole experience, it gives them space to tap into what their experience is, and then they can see themselves more clearly too. And I think that's such a missing thing in our world, is that we don't create space to feel and see our own and each other's full human experiences. And when we feel more deeply, when we see more deeply, we can also create more space for other people more easily. So, like you were saying, Kaylee, about deepening empathy, helping kids understand it, I think it just naturally kind of happens when we are more in touch with our own feelings, and we can't do that unless other people see us there first.
Yeah, and I think as a society, our first nature is to be selfish. It doesn't matter who you are. We're self-centered. At the core of it, we are self-centered. It's so easy to think about things like, well, you're my kid. Well, yeah, you're right. You carried that kid. You had that kid. You have that kid for 18 years. But they're a person. And beyond that 18 years, they then live a life and then they have kids and their life is important and they're going to eventually live their own life without you as much in it. You're not going to play as big a role. It's really hard for any parent to hear, but you have to help them ground themselves. They have to be their own person. I've had to do that lately. I don't have my own children, but with friends, it's easy to judge your friends or think, I would have done that differently. And I've had to really sit back and be like, okay, they're their own person. Let's look at their core and why they may be reacting to that the way that they are. They've had experiences too that look different than mine.
For sure. Thank you, Kaylee. Our values don't make our choices easier, but they do make them clearer. They call us to act with courage and integrity, even when it's uncomfortable. And they anchor us in alignment with who we strive to be. I invite us all to take a moment for a me check from time to time. The next time you feel pulled in a direction, pause and ask yourself, what value is guiding me right now? And is it one I want to live by? At Leading for Children, our approach to building strong communities for us and our children starts with each of us. Kaylee, thank you for joining us and for sharing your wisdom in this wonderful conversation. Thanks, Julia, for always shaping an engaging and rich conversation that invites us all to own the impact that we have. And thanks to our community for joining today's conversation about how living in alignment with our values strengthens us, our relationships, and our communities at large.
Thanks, Nichole. To hear more conversations like this one, please be sure to subscribe to the Leading for Children podcast on your favorite streaming platforms and turn your notifications on so you don't miss what comes next. If you're not already on our mailing list, you can go to leadingforchildren.org to sign up for updates about our national conversations, blog posts, and other ways to stay engaged with our Humanity First community.
Thank you for being here, and thank you for your commitment to shaping thriving communities for children. Wishing you optimism until the next time.